Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We're just getting set up. We'll be with you in a couple of minutes. Hi everyone, I'm Julian and this is Sky Betting Gaming's Virtual Career Spotlight. Sky Bet is one of the UK's leading online betting and gaming businesses. We're based out of Yorkshire and we have offices in Leeds, Sheffield and Solihull. Our teams design, build and maintain products such as Sky Bet, Sky Vegas, Sky Poker, Sky Bingo and free-to-play games like Super 6. Our Virtual Career Spotlight series focuses on a different team from across the business each week, and it's your opportunity to hear from our experts. We want this to be an interactive session, so please do ask questions. You can do so by adding a question into the comments box, and we'll try and answer as many of these as we can towards the end of the session. Today's spotlight is on DevOps, and joining me we have Gary Mason and Tom Morris. How are you doing, guys?
Not too bad.
Good, good. I'll let you both introduce yourselves to our listeners. Gary, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Gary Mason. I'm the operations manager for the Bet Tribe, looking after, amongst other things, the DevOps engineers within the tribe. I've been doing that role for a little under 12 months now. I've been with the business in total for a little bit over 5 years. I joined as a DevOps engineer in the gaming tribe, worked through to lead DevOps position, and then ultimately moved across. At the time, DevOps practices were still establishing. There weren't very many people in the organisation, probably 600 at most, and I've seen and been through quite a transition, both in terms of the number of DevOps engineers that we have in the business, the structure of the business, and the technologies that we use. I think what attracted me to Sky Betting and Gaming in the first place, realistically, I was looking at a few opportunities with tech companies throughout Yorkshire. But when I came for interview, I was quite surprised by the atmosphere in the office. Having spoken to the interviewers, the breadth of technologies that were being used, and the impression they gave of freedom and autonomy to sort of get on with your job and really change the way things work. And ultimately, because it's a challenging environment, it's complex. There's lots of things to get stuck into, and there's some really great people.
Gary's what we call a Sky Bet original.
Long-termer.
Tom?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Tom Morris. I've been a DevOps engineer. I joined the company in 2017 on the grad scheme, and I moved around a couple of different roles before settling into DevOps, where I've been doing that for about 1.5 to 2 years in some capacity. I've now settled into a centralized operations team in the Bet Tribe, where I work on tooling and infrastructure management for the Skybet product and its associated services. I like the look of Sky Betting and Gaming, as they were using technologies that I had an interest in, and they're operating at a scale which means high stakes with critical systems that can have an impact on a wide customer base. I also liked the culture that Sky Betting and Gaming has, and how they encourage constant learning and provide you the time and resources to do so.
Thanks, Tom. So today we're here to talk about DevOps, and I guess it's only right to start with a question that I get asked all the time, and that is, what is DevOps? And more specifically, what does it mean to Skybet?
It's quite a good question. Depending on where you go, there's lots of views as to what DevOps actually is. Realistically, from our perspective, it's a group of engineers that apply developer-type practices to infrastructure and platform problems. That represents a significant part of the workload. There's also an element of it which is there to support our developer teams, building development pipelines and dealing with the sort of deployment lifecycle stuff, the continuous integration, delivery processes and pipelines. But primarily, like with any kind of role with ops in the title, there is an operational concern there as well. So our estate is significant. We have over 2,500 live virtual servers, networking load balancing technologies. We operate out of AWS, Google. We have Kubernetes platforms. There's an awful lot that needs looking after, and the DevOps basically build and automate repeatable processes to make that possible.
Yeah, for me, that's I'd say it's more about, it's like reducing the time that it takes for development teams to get their software up and running on tests and production environments. So like streamlining the processes for onboarding onto our shared infrastructure. There's an element of ensuring that our networking and infrastructure systems are treated as you would do a piece of software. So making sure that everything's in source control and ensuring that the deployment processes are repeatable. There's the element about managing systems at a large scale so that they run stable and as graceful as possible. So that might mean having your scaling or resilient strategies in place. And then there's also the ensuring that when the inevitable things go wrong, that you're prepared for these and you can act quickly and accurately at diagnosing the various problems and get things up and running again. So for Sky Betting and Gaming, that might mean having these strategies in place for large sporting events or gaming's promotions. I guess that's how I see DevOps and then Sky Betting and Gaming.
Yeah, okay. And like Gary, you've worked in a few different businesses. From your experience, would you say that DevOps meant a different thing to different businesses?
It's such a broad term that there's always overlap. So there's always a focus on the DevOps engineers basically contributing and making sure that where developers are building platform or organizations are building platform, it's done with some kind of operational oversight. So involvement in the monitoring, the alerting processes, making sure that people have got self-documenting code, making sure that our applications capture the right metrics, all those sorts of things. You're going to be working with code repositories. You're going to be developing auto build processes for servers, your pipelines. They're all very similar. There's a lot of overlap, but definitely, yeah, companies do have different requirements. Some put more of a focus on operational, and they give the job role a DevOps title because it's kind of cool and trendy. Not the case really here. There is very much an expectation that you kind of you get up to your neck in code, code-based infrastructure specifically. So yeah, there's a massive difference, but also there's lots of overlap. We certainly wouldn't want anyone to put anyone off applying because they feel they may have limited experience.
Yeah, and you described quite a few different things there. So, like, what does a typical week look like for a DevOps engineer?
Yeah, so as an engineer, like, it could be a variation on lots of different things. So, for example, there would be being on a support duty where we provide support to the tribe, and if they're having problems with, say, the tooling that we provide, or just general queries about the infrastructure and maintenance. It could be about working on some future tooling to help improve the developer experience and getting teams onto the shared infrastructure. I might be doing stuff like refactoring legacy services and bringing them in line with the current business direction, or eliminating toil from various processes. It could also be getting involved in preparing our platform for upcoming sporting events, such as the start of the football season, where we need to load test our services and scale them up to meet the customer needs. There's also an element of ensuring that the platform is patched and secure, and software versions are up to date and vulnerabilities are mitigated. And those kind of what we do, and we achieve it through individually as engineers. We get given tickets, we work on our own tickets. But then sometimes when we want to distribute knowledge throughout the team, we will pair up, and we'll do that with sort of a junior member and maybe a senior member. And then we have sort of do sessions where we might have meetings and whiteboarding sessions. So, for example, there could be a problem that has just come up and we need to sort of swarm on it. So we'll go to a whiteboard and we'll draw out the potential things that are going wrong with it, and maybe we could come to some sort of diagnosis. And then for when we have like upcoming projects, we'll get the team around with the various stakeholders and we'll sort of discuss the architecture or a plan of action. So I guess those are some of the things that I might do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, and how we might do them. But there's plenty more variation as well.
Yeah, and the things you described there, Tom, like the processes, are we quite like rigid in the way that we work, or do you get quite a lot of autonomy?
Yeah, so we do have the element where we have work items that are provided to us on our roadmap. So these might be upcoming projects like application migrations onto new infrastructure, or business as usual tasks that need to be done on a regular basis. However, we also have the freedom to identify areas that could be improved and try to solve that problem. So this could mean raising a ticket to investigate maybe the options to try some things out, which then could be taken back to the team to discuss if we want to take it forward. So, for example, there could be a part of the system that is proving to be a bottleneck, and we need to review whether or not the technology choice in place or how we're going about things could be investigated to see if something's better. So we'd often do like little spikes where we would see if a possible solution is viable before deciding if it's worthwhile progressing. So like these could be these like little ideas for improvements often grow into larger scale projects, and they take up a lot of the team's time, and they contribute towards sort of improving the DevOps practices within the whole tribe. We might get a little improvement that you could identify in one place that could be applied into a separate place, and then we would create a project on that. So I guess I'm saying that we do have work provided to us, and there are other things that are always coming up, but we do have that autonomy to kind of identify areas to kind of investigate ourselves and choose our work a little bit.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And just to give our listeners, a better understanding of how we work, are you able to provide us with a bit of insight on how our teams are structured and where DevOps actually sits within the squads?
Yeah, I can do that. So as an organisation, we're split into tribes. We've got Gaming Tribe, which looks after the products like Vegas, Casino, Bingo, Poker, Lotto. We've got the Bet Tribe, which is largely focused on a single product, although it is kind of broken down into subcomponents with things like virtual sports and a few free-to-play games as well. Within the Gaming Tribe, which is where the majority of my engineering experience comes from with this company, it's quite different how it's arranged in BET. Within the gaming environment, we have squads that are built around specific products. Within those squads, we'll have typically sort of six to eight developers and an embedded DevOps engineer, and that DevOps engineer is primarily responsible for all operational aspects of that product and providing sort of first line, second line, third line support to the engineers that are part of that squad. They also interact and work quite closely with the architects as well, so they're key to what comes next. In gaming, they also have groups of DevOps that work as a team, and they kind of provide an almost platform-like capability, looking after managing and maintaining shared components that are used across all the squads. So, maybe shared database clusters, stuff like that. But also new initiatives. So as technology shifts come along, they'll be kind of the first adopters of those. They'll develop patterns and processes and drive, sort of try and help drive standards through the squads then to make things more repeatable. Within BET, we don't tend to have that structure. So all the DevOps that report into me, they're split between two squads. We have the BCAP squad, which is the squad that Tom's a member of, and they fill that kind of platform role. So their function, or their main function, is building abstractions that allow sort of ease of adoption for new technologies across the rest of the squads. Then our squads will be things like our presentation squads, promotion squads. They are mostly, if not entirely, developer based. They will work and consult with the BCAP squad. Occasionally we'll get people that will kind of second themselves for short periods of time to help deliver projects, but usually they come back to that central space. On the backside of that, we also have another squad which looks after kind of the core, the central systems that underpin everything that we do, both gaming and BET side. We've got a team currently of 4 people that look after all that infrastructure, which is more traditionally VM based, where we're using Chef automation for sort of server build and configuration purposes. And they're working closely with the third parties to look at feature enhancements and developments, deployment of those, and all the ongoing support of that. So that's gaming and BET. We also have Data Tribe, who look after a lot of our business information and all the stuff that is used to really drive the business. They have DevOps dotted around. They spend a lot of time working around Jenkins style pipelines for data that drives a lot of the data analysis processes. And we have an Infra Tribe as well. So and within Infra Tribe we have quite a large pool of DevOps engineers. They have built our internal systems for years. So they built and manage and maintain the underlying Chef server infrastructure. They've also built or continue to support and operate the Kubernetes platform, which is what Tom and his colleagues are working hard to build the abstractions for, so that we can move out and transition to those areas. So each tribe has got a very different kind of personality. They have got different structures, but they need to, because the nature of their business and the nature of the products they support are so different. But they're all kind of equally as challenging, but for quite different reasons.
Yeah, so we don't adopt the same DevOps model across the business. We kind of build it around the products or the area that they're working in.
Yeah, the primary responsibilities that we've already discussed tend to be the same, but there'll be slight variations in the technology stacks that they're using. In some cases they'll be providing support to other DevOps. In some cases they'll be providing support directly to the business. So there are different differences there, but in principle the underlying requirement of the role is the same.
Yeah. So you mentioned before that we have DevOps, platform, site reliability. So how does DevOps, WebOps, SRE, and platform, how do these roles differ?
So WebOps is kind of before my time in the BET Tribe, and it was kind of a BET Tribe thing originally. It was a title that was given to kind of squad integrated DevOps engineers. and with a primary focus of looking after our front end kind of web platform systems, so our traditional LAMP stack systems, stuff like that. That role kind of disappeared as the structure changed relatively recently. That role has gone. The title kind of is floating around still, but we don't tend to use it. We're all DevOps engineers now. From an SRE perspective, SRE is something that's been tried a number of times by different tribes and tried to be leveraged in different ways. But in principle, an SRE is someone who takes DevOps capabilities, so your ability to work with code, your ability to go in and refactor things, to drive automation and to build pipelines. But instead of having an operational focus, it has more of a service focus on there. So that role would sit and work closer with myself and with the service managers that I kind of work in a group with, to look more at the ongoing reliability issues, dealing with problem records, deep diving into incidents, building improved standards around monitoring, and really helping to sort of push things forward from a reliability point of view.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned a few technologies there before. So if for people that don't know, what technologies do we use, and I guess what direction are we heading in?
Okay, so like throughout the business, there are various different technologies that are used, and I can run through some of those that I use on a regular basis, or that I know that other people in the DevOps space are using in the company. We have our virtual machines where we're running versions of Linux, and we need to manage that virtual machine estate. And we do that through infrastructure as code. So we use Chef primarily for that. We use Akamai for our content delivery and edge servers. And for infrastructure provisioning and general automation, we leverage Terraform, as well as combining that with our Python and Bash scripting for various automation tasks and the creation of bespoke tooling. For our pipelines, we use Jenkins for our building and releasing of software. And then you have the associated scripting languages that go along with that to create the bespoke pipelines. We use the Prometheus Grafana Alert Manager combination for our monitoring and alerting, and integrating those into our chat rooms and things like that. We have the Elk stack that is used for logging aggregation. And as a business, we've got quite a heavy focus on our containerization strategy. So we use Docker for that containerization. And as we touched upon briefly earlier, is that we have Kubernetes in use for the orchestration of those containers, and we often use Helm for the templating and package management of that. So Kubernetes is a big focus for us. So having that common technology for the development teams can help us to move faster on getting software deployed, because the tests and the production environments are all behaving the same. And it really allows us to focus on our containerization strategy and get the benefits out of a scalable and self-correcting system that Kubernetes excels at. And it's also taken away a lot of the burden of patching from our development squads. So previously, they'd have their software packages deployed onto a virtual machine, and then you'd have your various fortnightly or weekly patching cycles that go along with that to make sure everything's kept up to date and secure. Or having the Kubernetes and Docker and just general containerization strategy means that we have centralized teams that take care of the base images for the software that goes on top of those, and those are patched on a regular basis and then provided to the development teams to do that software building on top of. So that's sort of really taken away the burden, like a huge benefit for us. And I'm sure there are plenty of other technologies that are used elsewhere in the business, but that's generally what I get a good exposure to on a regular basis.
Thanks for that, Tom. So just going to rewind a little bit now and kind of get a better understanding of how you guys got into the role. So, what was it about a DevOps role that appealed to you?
I think for me, the drive came from sort of my early experience. So I started life as a Windows consultant 20 plus years ago. We were handcrafting workstation server builds, and that gets old really quick. So at the time, I was one of a few people that was starting to write VB automation, VB based and script based automation around building workstations. And it was pretty obvious that was the way to go, really. It made life a lot quicker, more efficient, and a lot better. From there, I got moved into server automation, hardware builds as blade servers became a thing. We were looking at the processes and the technologies used for auto provision of those platforms. And it kind of went on from there. It was born from, I guess, a personal desire to not have to just keep doing the same repetitive tasks over and over again, but to build systems that did that work for me. I think I enjoyed the opportunity to work across vast amounts of technology as well, and the challenge of the fact that actually on a day-to-day basis, things change quite dramatically. You can be involved in an incident 1 minute, you can be delivering a project the next minute. And I kind of enjoyed that. I liked the fast pace of it, and I like to be busy, so it kind of worked well for me.
Yeah, well, for me, like I quite enjoy working on the big picture of things. So being able to liaise with multiple different development teams to provide them with the tools that they need to get up and running on our shared infrastructure, and it gives you a good view into the whole estate and how the different teams link together and the key part each of them plays in the product as a whole. So there's quite a wide range of skills that are required to become a successful DevOps engineer. And in that way, it means that there's always something that you can learn. So it's always keeping you on your toes as you need to balance that core knowledge of systems administrations and network, as well as like the technologies that are built on top of these. And as engineers, we're looking to improve and innovate on things. And it means getting to work with interesting technologies or methodologies to get the work done. And I guess these are some of the reasons why the role appeals to me.
Tom, you mentioned there's a lot of skills involved to be a DevOps engineer. So what would you say are the makings of a good DevOps engineer at SkyBet?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a multi-part thing. So you've got your core pieces of knowledge. So you have your systems administration on Linux servers. You have your networking fundamentals, such as firewalls, load balancers, DNS, routing system configuration. And then you have your CI/CD packaging and deploying of software using scripts. And then on top of that, you have the higher level technologies and the skills and knowledge that come along with that. So you, as touched upon before, is the containerization technologies, such as Docker and the sort of the best practice use of those. There's the container orchestration tools such as Kubernetes, where you can also being able to use these and know the benefits that systems like this can bring to a company and their scaling and availability targets. And then the cloud computing element, so platforms such as AWS and GCP, where you can apply the core knowledge concepts into the public cloud. But then you've also got the behavioral and the soft skill elements to it. So being a service provider and supporter, so providing the tooling to development squads to get them set up and supporting them through it. And there's the consultancy skills that come along with that, where you might be embedded within a development squad and you need to work with them to be able to get to a sort of a shared goal. And then the last thing would be a willingness to learn. So the technologies are always moving, and we get provided the time and flexibility to investigate these technologies and assess their benefits. So it's good to have the keen interest to learn about these new technologies. So on that, it's the core knowledge, the higher level technologies, the behavioural aspects, and then the willingness to learn.
Yeah, I think I agree completely there. I mean, my focus, and when I look at DevOps engineers, I guess I'm looking for some experience, but really not necessarily specifically against the same technologies that we use. There aren't many new problems in IT. Most of these problems have been re-experienced and re-solutionized many times over the years. Experience plays a massive part in being able to sort of identify those and sometimes to be able to mitigate those potential problems before they happen. So yeah, experience is a good thing. Tom's already touched on it. A desire to learn. We have, you know, we've touched on the kinds of technologies we use. Most of those have been implemented within our organization over the last 3 or 4 years. So the rate of change is significant. So we want people who are kind of excited by technology changes, people that are driven to learn those, and you know, get a bit of a buzz out of the next generation platforms and technologies. As a company, Sky Betting and Gaming are generally early adopters of technologies as well. So there's a lot of organisations out there that won't touch something unless it's been out there for 5-6 years and people are already using it. We tend to be right out there at the front. I look for people, or I want people to challenge. It's really easy to accept the status quo, and one of the things that I really hate is when people say, you know, because it's how we do it. That's totally the wrong attitude. So DevOps engineers, I look to DevOps engineers to challenge those perceptions and to collaborate and drive quality through the solutions that we implement. Let's mix things up. You know, if we've been doing something the same way for 12 months, chances are it's not the right way to do it anymore. So we want people that are constantly sort of engaged by trying to improve those things. And people that develop others. You know, we work as we're a big family at Sky. We all support each other. Nobody knows everything, so we look to each other to provide each other with the support that they need to learn these things and motivate each other as well. So yeah, team players. That's kind of what I look for, as well as obviously some of the technical skills that Tom's already highlighted.
Just a quick reminder, if anybody wants to ask any questions, do drop your questions in the comments box and we'll try and get to them towards the end of the session. Just back to you guys. So what would you say was the most challenging parts of a DevOps role?
For me, it will be the whole balancing of the service role with the roadmap items and the implementing improvements. So there's always the need to make sure that we're running operationally secure and stable, while also providing support to development teams on an ad hoc basis. So being able to balance this with your roadmap tasks and ensuring that you're getting the right priority can be a challenge. So like you have the frequent context switching, which means you have to keep a track of where you are with each task. If something small might pop up that you've got to switch over to and just deal with immediately and then switch back. So that requires good communication and time management skills on top of the technical skills that you need to get the job done. So managing this balance is probably the most challenging part for me.
Yeah, again, I think Tom covers most of it. From my experience of an engineer, I think the most challenging aspects are just the breadth of the technology stack that we use within Sky. You know, we've already covered it. We've got VMware, we have server management and configuration that uses Chef and primarily Ruby as a language. We have monitoring and alerting platforms. We support the operating system. We have database clusters, containerization, AWS, Google. You know, the list is significant. And at any point in time, an engineer can be called on to provide some form of support or deliver a piece of work relating to any of those areas. But I think, as well as it being the most challenging aspect of the role, I think it's also what makes it an interesting role. The potential for sort of every day, every half day to be a completely different landscape in terms of what work you've got to deliver and what's being asked of you to do. You know, the variation is incredible. So you don't get bored. It's really not a role for someone who doesn't like to be busy. But I like to think that people are busy in a way that's manageable as well. So yeah, it's a great job for people that enjoy a bit of a challenge. It's a great job for people that like to be busy.
Nice. And for anyone who might be thinking of a role in DevOps, do you have any advice on how they would get the foot in the door?
I can think of, so attending various meetups in the DevOps space. So in like your local city, they have, you probably have some groups of meetups of people that are maybe DevOps meetups or specific development language meetups or maybe agile methodology meetups. And these are good places to go and see, because companies provide, well, they send people to go and do talks at them. So you get to see how things are done in different companies and what technologies they're using and how they're achieving their own specific use cases for things. And then it's also a really good opportunity to network with like-minded people in the industry as well. There's things like doing tutorials online. So you might find some tutorial that's spinning up a Kubernetes cluster on a cloud provider. Or you might have one that is maybe deploying some simple bit of software to a virtual machine using Terraform and maybe some CI/CD techniques to sort of achieve the same thing. But something that's been really useful for me is having little projects where you'll have a small, maybe just a hello world application that you'll deploy, but you try to make them as production ready as possible. So that could mean integrating your continuous integration delivery techniques. So you push to a branch that might then trigger off an automated build and push to an artifact repository. This might containerize the app for you, push it off. And then you can do things like adding monitoring to the systems, so keeping an eye on the metrics of the traffic that's going through, the CPU, the memory, these kind of things. And then you can move on to having load balancers where you distribute the traffic according to sort of the policies that you set up, and managing the certificates, SSL certificates that are loaded onto those, and maybe having some automation of that and securing your apps. So yeah, like having that mentality and exposing yourself to all of these different sort of ideas that are what you would expect on a large scale, but just applying it to your sort of very simple application gives you a great appreciation of what companies are trying to achieve on just the larger scale. And it's a really good way to get exposure to those technologies and sort of just the way of thinking about having that application in a production ready way. And I guess those are some of the ideas that I have for getting started.
Yeah, and just in terms of meetups, our very own Andy Bergen runs Leeds DevOps as well, so check it out. Free plug there. And Gary, you tend to interview, a lot of DevOps engineers that are interested in working, at Sky Bet. So, what is it do you look for in candidates?
It depends on the position. Some people are looking for more junior people with less experience. Some people are looking for people to come in at a senior level. But generally speaking, an interview will focus not on our specific technologies, but they'll focus on questions around relevant experience. So, we use MySQL, we have Infomix databases. If someone's spent their last 4 years working on Postgres or Microsoft SQL Server, then, a lot of those skills are transportable. They're not irrelevant to us. It doesn't mean that someone shouldn't be looking to apply. We look for people that have got experience of doing sort of deep dive troubleshooting, problem resolution. How do they investigate a problem? How do they go about building a solution, getting buy-in from other people as well? Those sort of consultancy level skills where you have to influence people. That's quite key to the role of a DevOps. We look for experience of operating platforms, and we also like sort of do a little bit of a dig into trying to understand some of the softer skills and some of the personality traits of the individuals. You know, how passionate are they about the technology? Are they really driven by learning? Is it something that excites them? They're all things that work well in people's favour. And to go back to Tom, the previous question that Tom answered, you know, if people are applying and they've been doing all these bits of work where they've been building out simple applications, deploying them to serverless compute resources in AWS, or building containers running a Kubernetes platform, whatever it is, if they've got that in a code repository, send the link over, because it's the kind of thing that people tend to investigate. But the biggest thing and the key thing that gets discussed in the kind of post-interview wrap-up is potential. So we don't necessarily always look for a perfect fit at that point in time. What we look for is an individual that can grow into a role and hopefully far exceed the expectations of that role and build a career with us. So, you know, we don't want people that are with us for 12 months. We want people that potentially love the job, enjoy the workplace, and are going to stay with us for a number of years. So that's what we look for. Yeah, I'd encourage anyone with any operational or development experience that they've tinkered with infrastructure as code or had involvement in those sorts of things. If they're considering a move to the DevOps career track, then, you know, it's not an impossible, it's not a difficult move to make. You just got to throw yourself in and give it a go.
Thanks for that, guys. So I'm just checking the chat channel now, and it doesn't appear like we've got any questions. So thank you very much, guys, for your time today. It's been really great chatting to you and really insightful. Next week we've got a career spotlight on software engineering, so you know, please come and join us again. But thank you very much for all listening, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.